The president said, watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. And he wasn't kidding. Moments ago, Central Command executed one of the most powerful raids in the history of the Middle East, totally obliterating every military target in Iran's crown jewel, Kharg Island. For reasons of decency.
Breaking news. The United States military has just executed one of the most powerful raids in the history of the Middle East. U.S. Central Command struck and obliterated the island that serves as Iran's main oil export terminal, the single facility through which 90% of Iran's oil sales flow, the country's biggest cash register, the economic heart of the Islamic Republic, hit with surgical, devastating precision. President Trump warned Iran he drew a red line around the Strait of Hormuz. He said if Iran continued to interfere with the flow of global oil, there would be consequences. Iran kept pushing, and Trump, as he has demonstrated repeatedly throughout this campaign, meant exactly what he said. In the same operational window, the Secretary of War announced the heaviest day of military strikes in this entire conflict, with strike packages launching every single hour, intelligence improving in real time, and a 20% increase in the overall pace of the campaign. F-35s, B-52s, and B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, some of the most powerful aircraft ever built, each capable of carrying 70,000 pounds of munitions, are surging into the operating area. And on the ground inside Iran, something remarkable is beginning to happen. Ordinary Iranian citizens are now reportedly supplying Israel with intelligence about drone strike targets. Desertions from Iranian security forces are accelerating. The regime's bank was bombed. This Friday was no payday for the soldiers of the Islamic Republic. The war is entering a new and decisive phase. And tonight, we have the full picture. I'm Hannah Blake. This is Global News Diary. Let's get into it. The strike on Iran's main oil export island is not just a military action, it is an economic decapitation, and it sends a message that could not be delivered more clearly with words alone. 90% of Iran's oil export revenue flows through that island. Every barrel of oil that funds the IRGC, pays the Ba'ath, supports Hezbollah, bankrolls Hamas, finances the Houthi campaigns in Yemen. All of it passes through that single facility on its way to global markets. It is, in the most direct sense possible, the cash register of the Islamic Republic. Without it, the regime cannot pay for the war it is fighting. Without it, the regime cannot pay for anything. President Trump chose not to destroy the oil infrastructure itself, and he was explicit about why. Out of decency, he said, the United States does not need to permanently cripple Iran's economic future to achieve its military objectives. The strike was a message, a demonstration of what is possible, a brushback pitch aimed directly at the regime's most vital economic asset. But the message attached to that restraint is equally clear. If Iran continues to interfere with the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, if the mullahs continue to use the strait as a weapon of economic terror against the world, the decency stops. The oil infrastructure itself becomes a target. And Trump has demonstrated repeatedly and without ambiguity that when he draws a red line, he means it. Trump himself assessed the day's operations with characteristic directness. A lot of big hits, a lot of big wins, going very well. He noted that Iran continues trying to sabotage its own region, but the military results have been strong. The ball, as the analysis goes, is now in the mullah's court. Lay down arms, surrender before things get worse, or face the heaviest escalation this war has yet seen. The Secretary of War stood before cameras and made an announcement that defines the current phase of this conflict with precision. Today, he said, will be the heaviest day of kinetic fires across the entire operating area. Not a heavy day, the heaviest day. More strikes, more targets, more destruction delivered with more precision than any single day since Operation Epic Fury began. The numbers behind that statement are staggering. Strike packages are launching every hour around the clock without pause. The overall pace of strikes has been increased by 20% from the already unprecedented levels of the preceding days, and 99% of those strikes are executed only when aircraft are flying directly over the target with a crystal clear intelligence picture, meaning the accuracy rate of this campaign is operating at a level that defies what most people believe is operationally possible. The Secretary of War explained the intelligence feedback loop that is driving this escalating effectiveness. As strikes are executed and battle damage is assessed, the intelligence picture improves. Better intelligence leads to better targeting. Better targeting leads to more effective strikes. More effective strikes generate better intelligence about what remains. The loop feeds itself, exponentially increasing what the United States can hit, where and why with each successive day of the campaign. The aircraft executing this campaign represent the most formidable aerial armada assembled in decades. F-35 fifth-generation stealth fighters operating at the leading edge of the target package. B-52 heavy bombers delivering massive payloads from high altitude. And now B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, the so-called doomsday bombers, surging into the operating area. Each B-2 is capable of carrying 70,000 pounds of munitions. Each one can penetrate defended airspace that no other aircraft in the world can reach. And Iran has no air defenses remaining capable of threatening them. Above all of these aircraft, reconnaissance platforms gather intelligence in real time. Eye-in-the-sky systems flying beyond the reach of any Iranian weapon, feeding targeting data down through the kill chain to the strike aircraft below. This is not a bombing campaign. This is a systematic, machine-like, continuously improving process of identifying and eliminating every military asset the Iranian regime possesses. Phase 2 of Operation Epic Fury is targeting something even more consequential than existing weapons: Iran's ability to rebuild any of them. Every factory, every production line, every engineering facility, every company that builds any component of any Iranian ballistic missile, drone, or weapon system is being targeted and destroyed. The military assessment is unambiguous. As of 2 days ago, Iran's entire ballistic missile production capacity has been functionally defeated. Every company that builds every component of those missiles has been destroyed. Buildings demolished. Factory lines eliminated all across Iran. To understand the scale, consider the American equivalent. Imagine simultaneously destroying Raytheon, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin, not just their finished products, but every production plant, every component supplier, every manufacturing facility. The United States would lose not just existing weapons, but the ability to build more for years, possibly decades. That is what is being done to Iran right now, not disarming the regime temporarily, structurally eliminating its capacity to rearm permanently. Even if some remnant of the regime survives politically without the ability to manufacture weapons, it cannot reconstitute a military threat. The danger does not come back in 5 years. The industrial foundation of that danger has been destroyed. The question of who is actually running the Islamic Republic of Iran right now, if anyone is, has taken a dramatic new turn, with reports emerging about the physical condition of the newly appointed supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. Multiple reports indicate that Khamenei may be comatose. Sources suggest he suffered severe injuries in the opening strikes of Operation Epic Fury, injuries that may include the loss of one or both legs and internal injuries to vital organs. Another report states that he may be entirely unaware of the war being fought in his name and unaware that he has even been installed as supreme leader. These reports have not been officially confirmed by the United States government, but they are consistent with the established facts. Khamenei has not appeared on camera since the operation began. He has not addressed the Iranian people in person or by audio. He has not issued a video statement. The only communication attributed to him is a written note read by a state television presenter, a form of communication that proves nothing about his current condition or even his continued existence. President Trump noted it directly. No one knows who the leader is. And if no one knows who the leader is, no one can announce a surrender. That observation cuts to the heart of the strategic problem Iran now faces. A military campaign can be brought to a close through negotiation, through formal surrender, through a ceasefire agreement. All of those outcomes require someone with the authority to speak for the opposing side. If the supreme leader is comatose, if the regime's leadership class has been largely eliminated, if the IRGC commanders who remain are operating without clear direction from above, then Iran has no one capable of making the decision that would end this war on their side. The regime is not just losing militarily, it is losing the organizational coherence required to stop losing. Perhaps the most strategically significant development of the past 48 hours is not happening in the skies over Tehran or in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. It is happening on the streets of Iranian cities and in the quiet, dangerous acts of ordinary Iranian citizens who have decided to take a side. According to the IDF, ordinary Iranian civilians are now actively supplying Israel with intelligence about drone strike targets inside Iran. These are not foreign agents. These are Iranians, people who live in the country being struck, people who face severe personal risk for any contact with an adversarial military, choosing to provide targeting information to the force that is dismantling the regime that has oppressed them. The significance of this cannot be overstated. When a population turns against its own military to the point of actively assisting the enemy with targeting data, it is not a tactical development. It is a civilizational statement. It is the Iranian people saying, in the most direct action available to them under the circumstances, that they want this regime destroyed more than they fear the consequences of helping to destroy it. At the same time, desertions from Iranian security forces are accelerating, soldiers walking away from their posts, IRGC members choosing absence over service. The force that has been the backbone of the regime's ability to both fight external enemies and suppress internal dissent is beginning to fragment from the inside. And then there is the matter of the regime's bank being bombed. The payroll infrastructure of the Islamic Republic's security apparatus was hit. This Friday, for the first time, IRGC soldiers and Basij members did not receive their paychecks. Men who fight for a regime they fear rather than believe in will tolerate a great deal, but unpaid soldiers in a losing war are a fundamentally different proposition than paid ones. The regime's muscle is not gone, but it is weakening in real time from multiple directions simultaneously. Even as the air campaign reaches its most intense phase, the United States is simultaneously preparing for the next dimension of this conflict, the battle for the Strait of Hormuz. The USS Tripoli, a light carrier capable of deploying up to 30 aircraft, is leaving port in Japan and making its way to the operating area. On board, aircraft suited for swatting drones and engaging speedboats, a Marine Expeditionary Unit of 2,500 Marines, attack helicopters, F-35s, and a full command team. That combination of assets is not configured for long-range bombing. It is configured for close quarters operations in a contested maritime environment, drone intercepts, speedboat engagement, and the possibility of coastal or amphibious action. The Tripoli will join the USS Gerald Ford and the USS George H.W. Bush, already in the region, along with specialized anti-mine vessels described as among the most advanced in the world, capable of detecting a sea mine the way a bloodhound detects a scent. Allied nations are moving. Italy and France are in negotiations with Iran to pressure the regime to back off the strait. The British Navy is in discussions about contributing ships to tanker escort operations. The coalition for keeping the world's most critical energy choke point open is forming. Oil closed at around $100 a barrel today. Trump has been clear, preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon is a higher priority than oil prices. But he has also been clear about what he expects after the operation concludes. Gas prices will come tumbling down. Everything connected to energy will drop. The disruption is temporary. The security gains are permanent. President Trump, speaking directly to the American people and the world, delivered the kind of unfiltered assessment of this conflict that cuts through every layer of strategic framing and diplomatic language. He called the operation a little excursion. He said the economy will bounce back fast once it is over. He said he has the best poll numbers he has ever had. And then he said something that captures the essential moral logic of why this campaign is happening. We have to wipe out the evil, he said. It's an evil curse. They are evil people. That framing is not diplomatic language. It is not the language of strategy papers or intelligence briefings. It is the language of a leader who has made a fundamental moral judgment about an adversary and acted on it with the full weight of American military power. The men and women carrying out that mission understand it in precisely those terms. The Secretary of War visited American troops in the field during the campaign and asked them what they needed. The answer, delivered without drama, without hesitation, by young Americans operating at the tip of the spear of the most powerful military in history, was 3 words: more rounds, sir. That is the American military in this moment. Not confused about the mission, not uncertain about the objective, clear-eyed, calm, and determined, executing the largest aerial campaign in decades with the precision and purpose that comes from relentless training, trust in each other, and absolute clarity about why they are there. The commander-in-chief has been unambiguous. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran cannot threaten American interests with missiles, ships, and drones. those objectives will be achieved. And when asked how he will know the war is over, Trump gave the kind of answer that only a certain type of leader gives: when I feel it in my bones. Here is today's question. The U.S. just struck Iran's main oil export island. 90% of Iran's oil revenue flows through that facility. Reports suggest the supreme leader may be comatose and unable to surrender. With the Iranian people now supplying Israel with targeting intelligence, do you think we are witnessing the final days of the Islamic Republic? And what does the Middle East look like the day after? Drop your answer in the comments. The best responses get featured in our next video. Call to action. If this breakdown gave you the full picture that most coverage is missing, hit that like button right now. 2 seconds. That is all it takes. Subscribe if you are not already here. Every major development in this war, every strike, every military update, every strategic shift covered with the depth the story demands. Turn on notifications. This conflict is moving by the hour. You do not want to be behind. Share this video. Send it to someone who needs the full picture. This is the breakdown they need. I'm Hannah Blake. This is Global News Diary. We will be back the moment this story develops further. Stay sharp, stay informed.